morning, everybody. This is a live pre-storm chase mode. I'm on my way out to the target headed westbound on I-20. This is basically an extreme weather discussion with severe weather ramping up across eastern Nebraska, right along the ejecting surface low. The storm to the north of the surface low is spinning like a top to the west of Loop City. Never got warned, but definitely had some pretty strong rotation on Hastings radar. Even Omaha radar was depicting pretty strong rotation up above the surface, relatively high up in that storm. And that storm is moving due north. It's right on the north side of the low. A little bit of moisture wrapping around on the north side of the low up there as well. Severe thunderstorm watch has been issued across eastern Kansas. And storms were able to develop, high-bay storms developed to the southwest of Wichita, but at 30-degree temperature dew point spreads. Short-range models, though, show at about 7 or 8 o'clock Central Time, those storms could be moving into an environment characterized by stronger low-level wind shear, decreasing temperature dew point spreads, but at the expense of a growing nocturnal inversion as you get closer to sunset. That's probably going to cause a lot of those storms to go elevated in nature. Meanwhile, on radar in the northeastern Texas Panhandle, dangerous wildfires are developing. There's one just to the south of Canadian that has kind of been meandering north and south. Worried it's going to start threatening the town. Those southwesterlies, I'm hoping will keep that wildfire just to the south of town, but you can definitely see them blowing up on radar. Wildfires, that's behind the dry line and those strong southwesterly winds. Short-range forecast models are showing wind gusts to be approaching 50 miles an hour behind the dry line. Southwesterlies driving those wildfires in a southwest to northeast oriented direction. So it's like a repeat from last week. You get wildfires behind the dry line, drought conditions, low relative humidity, very strong gusty winds, and then you get rapid moisture return in the warm sector. Big southerly low-level jet. You got to mix down the dew points to realize them. Interestingly, the HRRR and the RAP model did a pretty good job at predicting the dominant mixing that would happen at the nose of the moisture return. Dew points have definitely mixed down into the 40s across north central Kansas, Bellevue, Concordia, up toward York. Dew points have mixed down into the 40s to the south of the warm front. Meanwhile, dew points continue to pool along the warm front. But storms are probably going to initiate in that well-mixed air, really high base, and then they're going to cross the warm front into the stable air, get elevated over a shallow stable air at the low levels. My mom and sisters actually and nieces went crystal hunting today. They did a crystal chasing mission down at Diamond Hill Mine, and my niece actually found an amethyst point, which is pretty exciting for her. I got the update just a little bit ago. Amethyst point was found. You can definitely see the beautiful spring colors that are coming out during my favorite time of year. The red maples especially, those bright red seed pods, bright red buds. The red maple, one of my favorite trees during the spring and the fall. So I'm targeting the moderate risk tomorrow, and the moderate risk has been expanded for the entire QLCS. Basically includes the entire state of Mississippi, up into western Tennessee as well. Potentially strong tornadoes embedded within the squall line, within the QLCS regime. Also the potential for some more isolated, discrete supercell development, especially between I-20 and I-10, down near I-10, down to the Gulf Coast. I do think that there's a chance that where you get south of the elbow, where the mid and upper level winds are a little bit more southwesterly, I think that could force a more favorable storm motion. Milky skies out here, even across Dixie Alley. Feels very dry, temperature up pushing 80. Can smell smoke in the sky even. In the air, definitely can smell smoke. Not sure if those are controlled burns or wildfires throughout the southeast. I know the southern Appalachians had a couple of spot fires that I think were relatively contained. behind that system that dumped a couple inches of rainfall. So clearly that rainfall is not mitigating the drought. All the vegetation and brush and everything that has fallen is still very dry. But the real wildfire, extreme wildfire danger, equivalent to a high risk, is happening right now across the southern high plains. Texas Panhandle up into southwestern Kansas behind the dry line. It's hard to stay hydrated with so much dry air lingering about. Dry air all over the place out here, everybody. Pretty happy with these new glasses, storm chasing glasses. They got these ventilation holes along the top, and that keeps them from fogging up as I'm changing moisture environments and I go from really dry conditions into really moist. And that's exactly what's happening during this year 2 La Nina, cold PDO, warm NPO in the north central Pacific. That's exactly what's happening. Thank you everybody for joining me on this live chat as I'm going to be targeting the moderate risk tomorrow. I've got Jackson, Mississippi typed in, but Jesus, that's out of control. And I'm probably going to be heading down toward Alexandria, Louisiana, the central portion of the state for initiation of supercell storms. And the shape of the upper system is critical. Thank you, Keith. Never stop chasing. Never. Almost to the Alabama border now, headed westbound into the setting sun. Beautiful spring day out here. It is dry. Makes the lips a little bit dry as well. What a reservoir of deep dew points sitting down in the Gulf of Mexico. I believe that the split flow pattern that we had last year during year 1 La Nina was more related to the warm PDO, the warm water around the eastern periphery of the Pacific, while at the same time you had La Nina maturing down in the tropical Pacific. With year 2 La Nina, it gives an opportunity for the extratropical Pacific to get that ring of cold water around the eastern periphery of the basin, encapsulating the warm blob, or the NPO, in the north central Pacific. That forces a ridge over the central Pacific Ocean, forces a trough over western North America. At least helps to encourage a trough in western North America. That's exactly what we've seen play out fall into winter into spring. We've definitely seen that in negative P&A mode. It's been happening with a trough west to east across North America. Wow. Thank you, Elizabeth. Never stop chasing. Never! Definitely seeing milky skies up top. Never stop chasing, Gina. Gina K. Landis, dominating. You're up in Pennsylvania, right? I remember having our discussion. I thought you were the Landis family from Mulvane, Kansas. Thank you, everybody. Never stop chasing. Never. I'm probably going to do a solo chase on this setup. Captain Vanover was thinking of flying out from LA. He's doing another project out there, but I think he doesn't like the QLCS possibility, despite the moderate risk by the Storm Prediction Center. Not a fan of chasing a Dixie Alley with a lot of rain, a lot of precipitation and whatnot. Right now I'm headed toward Jackson, Mississippi, but probably southwest of there toward the Alexandria, Louisiana area. I'm going to wake up at the butt crack of dawn and head down toward Alexandria right at sunrise and wait for those supercell storms to begin percolating. I think that the environment into central Louisiana late morning is going to be quite favorable for tornadic supercell. So that's what I'm going to be targeting right out of the gate, and I'm going to chase those into southern Mississippi. I am watching these wildfires on radar right now. The one just south of Canadian. You can see the plume on radar, and the origin of the plume is just to the south of Canadian, Texas right now. Well, that's a dangerous wildfire. And the plume is just hammering Glazer, northeast of Canadian. I wonder if we're seeing some of the smoke in the sky. Looks like another dangerous wildfire just south of Arnett. Behind the dry line. Arnett, Oklahoma. Dangerous wildfire happening right now. Just to the southeast of Arnett. There you can see the wildfire plume. Looks like a little bubblers along the dry line as well. Maybe some towers, suggesting that maybe we're getting a little bit closer. Yeah, look at that fire southeast of Arnett. That huge plume up near Arnett has me a little bit concerned, so I got a text message out to Jimmy Taylor, Joel's dad. They have a ranch out in Cheyenne, Oklahoma that's just to the south of that wildfire plume, but they are right in the middle of the critical fire danger, western Oklahoma into the Texas Panhandle into southwestern Kansas. Definitely dangerous wildfire conditions. Never stop chasing, Jake. Thank you. Never stop. You can definitely hear the squeaking coming out of the left side. The belts definitely are getting worse in the Dominator, but since I got the new tires, never stop chasing, Vince. Woo! Woo! Never stop. That applies especially to you, Vince. I know you're having some vehicle issues right now with the Predator. My heart goes out to you. Thank you, Gary. Never stop chasing. Never. Never stop. No, I started walking back the whole never stop chasing thing a little bit last week after the chase, during the post-chase adrenal crash. Seeing a lot of negative feedback on some young chasers or young meteorologists that were adding extreme to their titles. Probably inspired by all of us that are adding extreme in our titles too. And I don't think it's a negative thing to be focused on extreme meteorology. The extremes are the most interesting. I mean, the mean is also interesting and how that mean is changing over time. But the peaks and the troughs are what's especially interesting to us extreme meteorologists and extreme storm chasers. So I'm back on the never stop chasing bandwagon after a short respite. Got in a pretty good mountain biking session yesterday, and my phone kept falling out of my pocket, so I've lost my phone like 5 times during the mountain bike. I'd feel it, and it was gone, and I'd have to walk like a half mile back up the trail. I'd find it in the middle of the mountain bike trail. Clearly, I need to strap the thing to my body. I was using some different shorts, and I was trying to catch jumps, and every single time I tried to extend and launch off of a jump, I guess the zero gravity would launch the phone out of my pocket. But a sundog in these glasses, so I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but there is no place like home for the holidays. Looks like we're losing a few here. Probably couldn't even see. Yeah, I can see the sundog without the glasses, so I'm sure that you can see the sundog as well. You can definitely see that prism just to the left of the sun. Dangerous wildfire conditions erupting right now. I'm really concerned about that plume just to the south of our net. Really concerned about that wildfire plume. This is equivalent to a high risk, and that is a very healthy wildfire plume, wild grass fire, driven by wind gusts up to 50, 40, 50 miles an hour just to the southeast of our net. Quite concerned about it. Concerned about that wildfire south of our net. So much so, I'm gonna rip another live here. I am kind of surprised at that storm north of the surface low. What's this guy think he's doing? I'm just driving a safe distance back behind these folks. He's gonna want to get over. Probably should just allow him to. Do the right lane, shimmy. That's some Tennessee shimmy right there. Oh! There he goes. He got what he wanted. Squeak, squeak. Good afternoon, everybody. 40 to 50 miles an hour behind the dry line. Definitely very low relative humidities as well. The equivalent of a high risk for wildfires right now, with a critical, extreme wildfire danger, including a hatch area across the Texas Panhandle, including the cities of Amarillo, Dodge City, all the way down into northwestern Oklahoma, all the way up into central Kansas, even with that red flag fire alert. So a pretty dangerous situation. Destructive wildfires are developing across the southern high plains. And then overnight tonight, I expect severe weather to erupt on the dry line. There's a severe thunderstorm watch across eastern Kansas. Some high base storms have been bubbling. Mixing has been dominating so far, so I know that we broke down some of the short-range model guidance and discussed mixing last night in our subscriber-only live briefing. Remarkably, it looks like the HRRR and the RAP models have actually had a pretty good handle on the magnitude of mixing with actually dew points mixing down into the 40s across north central Kansas into southern Nebraska, where the 3-kilometer NAM was showing those dew points to be well into the 50s. And we were breaking that down. We believe the 3-kilometer NAM, of course, trusted model, really grew up with. Basically the ADA probably more so, but the NAM model, the 3-kilometer NAM we went with had those mid to upper 50s dew points pooling along the warm frontal zone. But that model is a bit of an outlier. The RAP began to agree with the HRRR, and we started to realize that toward the end of our in-depth forecast model discussion. But there was a storm that initiated just to the north of the low and to the west of Loop City up there in the Sandhills. It did look like it might have even produced a tornado. Had a pretty strong mesocyclone, even though we were scanning up relatively high in the storm. Definitely had a very strong mesocyclone on it. And it was moving due north, right on the north side of that surface low, right on the northern edge of the surface low. The storm was moving due north. Never got warned, though. I thought I was going to get a tornado warning for a little while, but remarkably, the thing never got warned. But really my concern right now is the wildfire danger. I was just sent a text to Jimmy Taylor, Joel's dad, and he's got eyes on that plume just to the north. Sounds like it's on the south side of our net right now. It's north of Cheyenne. The Taylor Ranch is down in the Cheyenne, Oklahoma area, so definitely extreme wildfire danger impacting those areas, locations that have not had measurable rainfall in a matter of months. Raging drought, and it's only going to get worse, but it's really bad. The wildfire danger is a lot worse behind these dry lines when you get those really gusty wind conditions, 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts, really low relative humidities as well. Dew points dropping into the 20s and 30s behind the dry line. To the east of the dry line, rapid moisture advection continues, but it's battling mixing during peak heating. So you get a lot of heating that'll tend to distribute the dew point up and down the layer, defined by those dry adiabatic lapse rates. And it acts to decrease the dew points at the surface that build underneath the nocturnal inversion. Acts to increase the dew points in the dry layer just above the ground. But we looked at some soundings as well this morning. The TFW sounding had that remarkably dry air just above the moisture layer. So I'm going to be chasing the moderate risk tomorrow. That's what I'm targeting. Dropping down toward Jackson and eventually toward Alexandria. I think central and southern Louisiana is going to be the most favorable threat for discrete supercells. Slightly more westerly winds in the mid and upper troposphere should help to encourage a more west to east storm motion, while more southwest to northeast storm motion. We're to the north of the elbow in that complex trough ejection. North of the elbow, you're going to get largely meridional flow from the low-level jet all the way up to the mid-levels. Classic QLCS setup. You're going to have embedded strong tornadoes within that line, and that's going to include the threat all the way up to Memphis. But another dangerous wildfire just to the south of Canadian Texas, northeast Texas Panhandle. A dangerous wildfire as well just to the southeast of our net. It's equivalent of a high risk for fire weather, fire danger, very destructive fire situation driven by those winds gusting 40 to 50 miles an hour. A very hot, dry environment as well behind the dry line. Look at res satellite imagery. That's what I'm definitely do. If you look at the high res satellite imagery, you can see all kinds of bubblers out there, smoke plume, high base cumulus behind the dry line. Looks like a crazy satellite image. Saw my Twitter follower, or the person that I follow on Twitter, Bill Line, works for the satellite. Gotta get the inverter ripping again here. Got word that the Dominator 3 is coming down. We're still working out some logistics with it. But once those logistics get ironed out, it does sound like Dominator 3 is coming down. Sean Schofer and the band back together. And we're probably going to be launching rockets into tornadoes once again during peak season. I did recommend to them, though, to come down a little bit earlier because I think what's going to happen is eventually the severe weather season is going to shut down, and it's probably going to happen in May. I can see a more active early season, March into April, and eventually it's going to shut down. Remember 2011 shut down finally in late May, but that season also, that year too, La Nina, cold PDO, warm NPO, got a late start starting in April, so March was relatively dead during that year. One system, a relatively dry. I think there was a tornado in Iowa in March 2011. I think there was also one northeast Oklahoma relatively early in the season, but that one didn't get started until April, and it got started with a bang. Over 700 tornadoes during April of 2011. I feel like we're just hammering the same talking points every live, like a robot. Gotta get some new material, but you know, we've been talking about the climate system all winter, in the spring, the La Nina, the warm PDO, the cold PDO horseshoe. We've been talking about all those things. Breaking down radar, dual pole radar, breaking down photographs, storm relative velocity, storm relative inflow, critical angle, streamlines vorticity. It's pretty awesome, the new generation of storm chasers and scientists that are taking such a deep dive into the photograph, into soundings, using the photograph to describe certain examples of storm structure, developing different, integrating the photograph into traditional map-based forecast models. Each grid point, plotting a photograph on there, overlaid on surface-based instability. I just think it's fantastic. And you're seeing a bridging of the gap between the storm chasers and the scientists that's happening with the millennials and the youngest new generation as well. You knew that the big looping photographs meant favorable wind shear, but you didn't have as much information on critical angle. You know what it means to try to purely streamline vorticity at different layers within the photograph. That's sort of coming out when I was in grad school. My office mates were kind of at the forefront of that critical angle research. Don Giuliano and John Esterheld created a publication on critical angles. And then now the new generation is expanding on that research even more, deriving storm structure, even deviant tornado motions from photographs, looking at the different photographs by geography, the different shear profiles from the high plains to traditional tornado alley down to Dixie Alley with more of a dominance of directional shear across the high plains of the easterlies, a lot of times up to a couple of kilometers, flipping around to westerly. I'll tell you what I'm going to do coming up here live for subscribers is to break down all the different classes of photographs, all the different soundings as well, and I'll show you pictures of what the storms looked like from my own eyes, and then I'll pull up photographs, soundings from nearby, and we'll start to do our own analysis on what different types of photographs result in different types of storms. Maybe we'll have some of those. His Caleb Root is doing a lot of work as well with photographs and radar and storm structure. It'd be awesome to have some of the original photograph scientists as well. We could have the inventor of the photograph. We could have John and Don, my old office mates, on for a discussion of wind shear and photographs. You gotta wonder, as we kind of transition into Web3, if eventually we're going to have all these 3D viewers of model data. Really high res, probably, you know, even modeling individual supercell structures within severe weather events. take a look at that wildfire in Arnett. A little bit worried. Once the winds shift out of the northerly direction as the front sags through the area late night tonight, there's probably going to be a narrow window where those wildfires are going to be able to shift even. Elevated storms are starting to develop within the kind of the relatively dry environment too. To the east of the dry line across Oklahoma. And then behind the dry line, they got that wildfire plume to the south of Arnett. Just south of Arnett as well. I mean, that plume, if the wind's back just a little bit, south-southwest or a little behind that dry line, there's a chance that can easily come into Arnett. So definitely heed any evacuation warnings. Definitely heed just to the east of the dry line, across central Oklahoma, west and northwest of the metro. Pretty wild map out there in the western U.S. You can definitely see these high clouds beginning to migrate in. No severe thunderstorm warnings across eastern Kansas. In fact, no severe thunderstorm warnings anywhere. No tornado warnings anywhere. But that high... Oh, and as I say that, we just finally got a severe thunderstorm warning deep in the Nebraska Sandhills. It is our original storm that we were tracking, which had some pretty strong rotation on it to the west of Loop City a little earlier. It's got a severe thunderstorm warning. North Loop, they're included in that severe thunderstorm warning. A relatively meridional storm motion too. It's more of a dominant hailer, but it looks like it might have tried to produce a tornado just to the west of Loop City earlier. Yes, thank you. Please smash that like button, everybody. Notification bell, let it rip, grip and rip, dominating. Just west of North Loop. Oh, I am looking at it. Well, that storm heading into North Loop could certainly be a concern. It does have a large, broad mesocyclone on it. Quite a bit of inflow as well. There you can see the inflow on the east side. That is in pink. A little bit of a rear flank downdraft on the back side, but it does look like a hailer. The very broad storm relative inflow that you're seeing on the east side of that mesocyclone is definitely indicative of a storm that is starting to go elevated to the north of the warm front. Alex is out in LA. He's doing a big film shoot out there. Still a chance he'll come out, but it's looking less likely. He's not a big fan of the Dixie Alley or the QLCS events either. Maybe needs a little bit of a breather after the last setup as well. Sometimes that could be a little bit intense. It's usually when I stick to usually storm chase by myself. I mean, I couldn't get along with me if I was riding in this car. But I think I'm going to be working the QLCS. There was a chance Chris Florida was going to be chasing with us. He didn't want to waste it on a QLCS event either. But he's heading out in his own car to chase tomorrow. I might end up dropping down toward Alexandria. Yeah, he's doing a big-time film project out in LA. Like a mega film project that he's probably not even allowed to mention the specifics of it. He's also the premiere of Ambulance, the movie. He was pretty prominently featured in that. A ton of FPV drone shots. And I think that's coming up on April 1st. So this storm chase might also interfere with that a bit. The man's just got more important things happening right now. But he almost came out. He was thinking about flying in tonight down into the target area, but the mention of QLCS, linear modes. But I still think maybe south of I-20 down toward I-10 especially, there could be some more isolated supercells. And that is a problem because that would drag those across the New Orleans area too. And I know that New Orleans just recently had a strong tornado go through there, damaging strong tornado. Should have a fantastic sunset tonight. Got sundogs on either side of the sun up there. Should just be a beautiful sunset with these high clouds, mid and high level clouds that are streaming over top. Beautiful spring colors out and about. It's awesome to see the spring colors. My favorites are the red maples, the new buds on the red maple trees. Thank you, everybody. Smashing that like button. I'm going to continue to stream on my drive out here because of the dangerous extreme weather that's breaking out. Wildfire danger across the Texas Panhandle in the northwest Texas and northwest Oklahoma. The most dominant plume that we're watching is just south and southeast of Arnett, Oklahoma. Another big plume is just to the south of Canadian Texas as well. Keeping an eye on that, and man, if those winds were just backed a little bit, that would likely send those wildfires into those communities. But I'm going to be streaming live this entire storm chase mode tomorrow. I'm going to wake up at the crack of dawn, head down toward Alexandria, and I'm going to chase those late morning all the way up through southern Mississippi. There's another big system coming out on April 4th and 5th. So I am hoping that Alex will be able to come back out for that one and we can accomplish our mission. Kind of let him down working together over the last 8 months to a year because I haven't gotten a really good daytime intercept opportunity. Keep getting all these nighttime tornadoes, but can't seem to execute during the day. Probably putting a little too much pressure on it too. Sometimes you just gotta... We are getting tornadoes. It's just that that southern storm, for some reason, took a couple of hours to organize due to some internal dynamics. We were also on that storm that produced the EF3 tornado, well north of I-20. We were on it earlier when it crossed near the Newton, Mississippi area. That thing went on to produce an EF3 tornado. When we were meandering on the back roads, it would have been impossible to catch it. We would have had to go all the way further north and just wait for the storm to come to us well north of I-20, but all those incredible shear profiles were quite favorable to the south of I-20 as well. So it's just how it goes during March. Difficult chases, widely separated targets, quickly evolving targets as well. Storms are moving really quickly. So March is an intense month to chase, that's for sure. But looks like it's going to continue into an active first half of April as well. Thanks, Mr. Tank. Never stop chasing. I'm not liking that high-pitched noise that the Dominator 4 is making. Not liking that noise. I think that the transmission is slowly starting to peter out. I believe that that's just micro slips by the belts within the transmission of the Subaru. But I'm just hoping that this car can make it through at least the early season. I do have gravitron sensors charged up. We did analyze the data from the intercept to the west of Crockett, and we actually registered a 6 millibar pressure drop from the gravity wave sensor that was on board in Dominator 4. It's not surprising. That's really about the minimum threshold for a pressure fall to get your ears to pop. And I know Alex commented that his ears popped as well. He has some clogged allergies. But we really needed to be in Chris Florida's position with the gravitron sensor on board to really register a dramatic pressure fall. He probably measured a 50 to 100 millibar pressure fall even at his location. Definitely in the core of the vortex. But we just got to continue to grind, keep deploying these gravity wave sensors ahead of storms in a triangle configuration, and eventually we're going to hit a direct hit. It's just only a matter of time. We got to keep flex taping gravity wave sensor to poles and obstacles out ahead of the tornadoes, including QLCS circulations. So I'm going to be deployed on those as well tomorrow. Remarkably, ever since I got these new tires, I'm getting double the gas mileage now, which is definitely pretty important. My gas prices have come down a little bit, I guess toward 370 across this area. I've seen a couple 370s. Not bad. Just excited about this sunset that's going to be coming up for us. Beautiful spring colors. Look at the buds on the trees. Fantastic. Thank you, Juby Joe. Never stop chasing. Yeah, the glasses that I'm wearing have the ventilation holes in the top that keeps them from fogging up. Thank you, Daniel. Never stop. Never stop chasing, Daniel. Anybody needs inspiration to never stop chasing, you can find it here. We hammer that concept home here at Team Dominator. That storm up near Ord, south of Ord, definitely is elevated. Has an inflow notch on it, but you can tell it's a classic storm that is starting to get an elevated hailer type of an appearance. Large hail. It's going to be the main threat with that storm. The only severe thunderstorm warning right now, actually there's a new one now just north of Wichita for those high base storms, but they don't look very good. They look like windbags, pretty elevated. Thank you, Brandy B. Never stop chasing. You are appreciated. I'm gonna have to get gas here pretty soon. Got about 70 miles on this tank. Yeah, an absolutely beautiful evening out here across Dixie Alley. I'm dropping southwest towards the target area. And I think we're going to be in for an absolutely stunning sunset tonight, everybody. Stunner of a sunset is imminent. Yes, thank you everybody for riding along in my passenger seat. Belts are sounding like out of the left side of my car. Squeak, squeak. Yeah, tomorrow is going to be a track meet of a storm chase, rapidly ejecting squall line. My tendency is to head south and kind of lean south with my targeting, lean south toward the I-10 corridor, maybe even chase the whole event down the I-10 corridor as that surface space instability begins to bleed onshore across the central Gulf Coast region, southern Mississippi, southern Alabama. My friends out in Leakesville, Hattiesburg area, if you're watching this, tomorrow's going to be a day where you got to stay tuned to those watches and warnings, of course. everybody. Watching the Wildfire Threat as well. Squeak, goes the Dominator 4, y'all. Squeakity squeak. Goes the belts of the Dominator 4. Coming into this beautiful town here. Look at that, the hills in the distance. You might think that Alabama doesn't have hills or even mountains, but you'd be wrong. Look at those hills. And the southern extension of the foothills of the Appalachians down into northern Alabama. See those hills in the distance? Those look like mountains, don't they? Kind of the foothills of the Appalachians here, extending all the way down to I-20. Still tracking the wildfire danger. It looks like the dry line is trying to convect in northwest Oklahoma with high base storms, but then immediately behind the dry line, you have a wildfire that is knocking on the door of Arnett. Arnett, just to the northwest Oklahoma. I'll be in Mississippi quite rapidly. We do have these severe thunderstorm watches, blue boxes that have been issued far eastern Nebraska. The slight risk has been expanded into western Iowa as well, but mainly a windbag event as that front starts to take over. Dew points, the well-mixed models definitely won out. HRRR and the RAT models. Those are the blue boxes, severe thunderstorm watches. There is the severe thunderstorm warning northeast of Wichita right now, relatively high-based, more of a windbag. Inverted V soundings right now below them. But also watching that wildfire just to the south of Arnett right now. Definitely has my eye. Squeak, squeak. And in fact, the plume looks like it's dominating just to the south of Arnett. Even got 40 dBz within the plume. So I think that the plume is becoming even more healthy, the wildfire, to the south of Arnett, across northwestern Oklahoma. Got 40 dBz within the wildfire plume now in Arnett. Look at those beautiful new buds coming out on the leaves across those hills. Bright green, tons of chlorophyll, rapid photosynthesis happening. Man, I'm watching that plume just south of Arnett. I think it's nasty. Looks like another plume. That's probably the cold front. No, I swear that's a plume as well in the eastern Oklahoma panhandle, but high risk. Definitely verifying for wildfires. Critical risk. Extreme fire danger. Like there is a mandatory evacuation, I believe. Let me take a look for sure. Extreme fire danger. Well within the extreme fire danger zone. The purple is extreme, white is historic. Wouldn't be surprised if there's even some historic markers down into the Texas Panhandle. There's also that fire warning south of Canadian. At 6:17 p.m. Central Daylight Time, a large, dangerous wildfire was rapidly moving toward Durham, Oklahoma. Evacuation area, Durham. Roger Mills County, emergency managers, fire warning. Dangerous wildfire was located 5 to 7 miles north of Durham. Moving rapidly northeast, 3 to 5 miles an hour. A second fire continues to threaten areas near Crawford. Jimmy Taylor believes that's where it started. That wildfire was down near Crawford. So, Durham, mandatory evacuated area, dangerous wildfires. That's the story right now. It's not the severe weather, it's the destructive wildfire conditions that are happening. Really concerned about that wildfire south of Arnett. Sounds like that fire was started near Crawford, Texas. I'm in Crawford, Oklahoma. It's south of Gage, just south of Arnett. The mandatory evacuated area is Durham, Oklahoma right now. And it appears that that wildfire is kind of propagated southward, probably into the Durham area. Probably apocalyptic scenes across Durham, a very small town across northwestern Oklahoma. Smells like a fart here somewhere. It wasn't me, believe it or not. Could just be some decaying vegetation or something, swamps, sewage. So Durham, Oklahoma, mandatory evacuated area. Dangerous wildfire just to the south of town. It's critical fire danger, but borderline historic. I think they might have dropped the fire warning for Canadian proper. Looks like it's just south. Significant wildfire outbreak is likely across the southern high plains, high winds, dry conditions. 80 degrees, 14% relative humidity in Canadian right now. Dew point 28 degrees in Canadian with a temperature of 80 degrees, so very dry across the wildfire zone of the Texas Panhandle into northwestern Oklahoma into southwestern Kansas. That front's going to come through late night tonight. Then that'll bring down some lower relative humidity values. Might even lead to those wildfires shifting from north to south temporarily. The plumes are relatively shallow. They're not like those ones that are burning up all the timber in the Rocky Mountains that'll just have perfectly vertical towers, relatively weak winds. These are strong winds that are getting tilted. The plumes are almost flat to the ground, rapidly moving wildfires, highly destructive. Some more similar to that wildfire that happened in eastern Colorado on December 15. While that big QLCS event was ripping through eastern Nebraska into Iowa. Not surprising, there were destructive wildfires behind that frontal boundary, behind the dry line, driven by a downslope mountain windstorm as well. So you're heart definitely feels for these small communities with those wildfires that are knocking on the back door of your community. It's got to be apocalyptic right now in Durham, Oklahoma. Even Arnett, Oklahoma probably looks apocalyptic. Those mandatory evacuations include the Durham area. Right now, the plumes southwest and northeast. Sounds like the fire is moving rapidly at 3 to 5 miles an hour. So that's a rapid movement for a wildfire. We're watching the plumes on satellite and on radar. Cruising west to intercept the moderate risk tomorrow. Tornado potential. Major tornado potential expected. Thought about chasing the wildfires as well behind the dry line today, but that would have involved a pretty rapid movement from behind the dry line down to central and southern Louisiana by late morning. Would have been almost impossible to make that happen, especially solo, even with multiple people in the car. Yeah, Thursday could also spread east, central and southern Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia. That's where it looks like the threat shifts on Thursday as the trough ejects off to the east. Interesting gravity waves to the east of the wildfire plume in the vicinity of the dry line, probably leading to initiation of storms dry line. Reflecting gravity waves near the dry line zone have been known for initiating storms. You can see those gravity waves, wave-like configuration right in the middle. Wildfire plume off to the west, forcing mandatory evacuations in Durham, Oklahoma. A couple of new severe thunderstorm warnings northeast of Wichita. Those do not, well, they're starting to get some supercellular appearance. Just to the southwest of Cottonwood Falls as that storm is starting to move into the Flint Hills. That one looks like it's starting to maybe hit some deeper moisture, some better low-level wind shear, and maybe that storm could develop some tornado potential as we extend it later on in the evening especially. Storm rapidly developed to the north near Sedgwick, just north of Wichita. It's rapidly intensifying. We'll look at are now in the middle 50s in Wichita, 79 over 55. So we're getting a little closer to those 23, 24 degree temperature dew point spreads. And as those eventually drop below 20, if the nocturnal inversion isn't too terribly stout, then there is a narrow window for even a tornado potential this evening, probably between about 8 and 11 p.m. But middle 50s dew points, racing northward through eastern Kansas, up into central Kansas as well. I think that's an error at 68, 70 over 68 looks like an error. Basically middle 50s, definitely mixed out though. That certainly is preventing these deeper dew points from reaching the plains. We had bigger dew points here across the southern plains. Yeah, I know en route. I usually just use IN-route just to say that I'm in the middle of the route heading southwest instead of using the romantic version. About to get a beautiful sunset out here. The driving glasses are going to be coming off pretty soon. A couple of blue boxes, eastern Kansas, up across eastern Nebraska. Severe thunderstorm watches that are in effect up there. And we are watching a couple storms that are starting to get reinvigorated as they're moving into eastern Kansas. But really the big concern is the wildfire threat. Texas Panhandle, northwestern Oklahoma. Durham, Oklahoma is under a mandatory evacuation right now with a fast-moving wildfire moving at 3 to 5 miles an hour. Oklahoma City's got about a 58, 59 dew point. You're probably going to see some severe weather late tonight between about 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. Seems like the most likely period for severe weather for the Oklahoma City metro. Nice. Let me help out. Putting on the donut tire. So I'm definitely targeting the moderate risk area tomorrow, and I think supercells could develop by mid to late morning as early as Alexandria, down to the I-10 corridor, maybe even Lake Charles as well, a little earlier in the morning. Could develop a tornado potential. And then I'm just going to chase those through eastern Louisiana, across southern Mississippi, and then maybe even drop east-southeast toward southern Alabama or into the Florida Panhandle. But the wildfire threat is the big concern this evening right now. Driving out to my target area for tomorrow. Now, I don't listen to music when I'm streaming live because of the copyright issues that can happen out here. So I just got to basically drive and just talk to you guys. Stream of consciousness. I'm actually a lot more comfortable talking to a phone than I am talking to a regular person. I can just sit here and talk all day. I'm gonna get gas here in Talladega. You guys are riding shotgun.
Use the left lane to continue straight. Continue straight. Stay in the second lane from left. Turn left, then turn left onto State Route 77.
Yeah, I think that's the smoke that I smelled as I was passing through northern Georgia, and it does look, you can even see the smoke. Not sure if it's all high clouds up there, but yeah, you can definitely see fires even here across the southeastern U.S. I'm gonna get gas here, everybody. Stand by. Be right back. Thinking about just sampling an Arby's crispy chicken sandwich, but I'm gonna make the right decision and not get it. Do the right thing for health. Almost pulled the No, I didn't get anything actually, and I should have. I'm regretting it now. I'm hungry. Even though I've had a bunch of meals today. I think mountain biking yesterday. Hear that when I accelerate? That cannot be good. It's a bad sound. Hear it? You can see the Dominator 4 is struggling. Holy cow. Alright. As long as it'll accelerate as that tornado moving at 50 miles an hour, trying to catch us from the ass end, as long as it can accelerate just enough to keep us in front. And meanwhile, we got wildfire danger, Texas Panhandle through northwestern Oklahoma to southwestern Kansas right now. Thinking about headed down toward Alexandria, Louisiana in the mid-morning time period and just allowing those supercells to mature, to percolate. I'm going to wake up very early tomorrow morning and then drop down into my target area. That there is an outside chance of maybe even an upgrade to high risk, but it'll be for wind. Don't think it'll be for tornadoes. Today the SBC issues a high risk for QLCS tornadoes. I do think that eventually that leap is going to have to occur because you can be relatively confident in a very widespread outbreak of QLCS tornadoes. I believe that the whole line forces a more west to east storm motion as well for the individual updrafts, even expanding out greater storm relative publicity. I think it's important to really take in purely streamlined vorticity just above the surface layer. At 500 meters, even a kilometer up, you're taking in a purely streamlined vorticity pipe or even enough streamlined vorticity, the component that's parallel to the inflow at that layer, storm relative inflow. And I think that that could dynamically pipe, still get flipped into the vertical, and then have potential to even tighten into a tornado at the low levels. But you definitely need the low level shear to be conducive for that to happen. Lowest kilometer, lowest 500 meters, for example. Probably will start to chase down in Alexandria, Louisiana. That's kind of my target, I think. New thunderstorm warning down to the Attica, Kansas area, Attica to Harper. That was an area that had a big tornado May 12, 2004. Oh, this guy's sparking. Get me out of here. Who knows? I'm trying to get my hand signal. Severe severe thunderstorm warning down near Attica. Looks to me like it's going to be a lot of messy blobs, some hail, some damaging straight line winds. I think that the tornado threat is quite low for these events, even though the wind shear is starting to increase quite a bit. Yeah, 70 knot low level jet is going to cause tornado-like vortices even within a squall line. And thank you, TK! Never stop chasing. Never stop chasing. Yeah, on Thursday, the threat of severe weather expands across the Carolinas, even down into Florida, central and southern Georgia. And I'm probably going to chase both of those days, Wednesday and Thursday. I decided to sit out today because of the mixing issues. Once the RAP jumped on board with the HRRR, I had to trust it. Had to trust that dominating mixing at the nose of the moisture, north central Kansas. Coming into Birmingham again, gone through this. Usually go through this town dozens of times during the spring. That traffic killed me back there. Atlanta into the west of Atlanta. Wow. Birmingham, Alabama. Beautiful purple skies out here. Tracking severe storms that are developing around the Wichita area, but they're pretty messy. They're not going super cellular just yet. There's blobs, convection, strong to occasionally severe. Right now, the only severe thunderstorm warning is down near Attica to Harper, Kansas, north of Anthony. That's where the big May 12, 2004 outbreak was located. Yeah, we did think that there was tornado potential in that arc, and it ended up hitting Jacksboro. It ended up happening to the northwest of the DFW area on the 21st. EF3 tornado hit Jacksboro head on. I think that might have been the strongest tornado of the entire outbreak on March 21st at least. I think it hit the elementary school head on. That crazy security camera video from the elementary school, that you can almost see the vortex. I think the vortex that was dominating the basketball floor there was caused by really rapid airflow over the top of the elementary school, creating a negative pressure perturbation at the top. And maybe when the roof was lifted off, it had violent uplift and a vortex that was created. Almost like a tornado chamber. Probably had wind coming in from the sides as well. Who is Tornado Boy? Thank you, TK! Thank you, Eric Lee! Never stop chasing. Ice cold beer sounds good. Trying to watch what's going on. We're doing that severe thunderstorm for Harper, but it looks like just a pure hailer. Maybe some gusty winds as well with high base, kind of 25 to 30 degree temperature dew point spreads out near Harper. I wouldn't be too worried tonight in Peoria. Even Iowa, I wouldn't be too worried. I think it's going to be mainly a windbag up there. Windbag event. Really thankful that I didn't fly in to chase the triple point. I can tell you that right now. Yeah, those are dense, hail dense. This vehicle was brand new in 2018, and right out of the gate I took baseballs down near Colorado Springs. In my experience, El Niños and neutral seasons have a lot more moisture to work with in the high plains. Thank you, BRX Seed. Yeah, I think Mayfield probably should have been an EF5, but I would define a different ratings technique, I think, because a lot of times those monster tornadoes that are in the Great Plains that are moving a lot slower, you get exponentially greater residence time of the destructive winds over any given point. So I think that's why it's not a fair comparison between those fast-moving, long-track tornadoes that you get at Dixie Alley and the ones in the Great Plains, like Bridge Creek 99, Gerald, Texas 97. Even Bennington, Kansas, a nearly stationary violent tornado. But the engineering argument is always valid. If a strong tornado happens in an area where the engineering isn't, necessarily as anchor bolted down, or it's not as extensive or robust as it is in other areas, then an EF3 or an EF4 damage tornado will cause total destruction of those weaker structures. So it's really impossible to use damage to assess a tornado vortice's strength. But you can just estimate, and it seems like the damage indicators don't really factor in the residence time of the winds over any given location on the ground. Yeah, I think it could break up as well by the time it reaches Alabama, especially the southern half of the state, but including the I-20 corridor. But my instinct says to drop down into Alexandria and maybe pick off a couple tornado warnings early in the process. But maybe I will just want to hang on I-20 the whole entire way and just chase it east. But I do think that south of I-20, closer to I-10, there's going to be a greater likelihood of discrete storms. I do think that Jackson would probably be a good middle ground to start the chase as well. But I would love to go further southwest toward Alexandria too. Thank you, Stephen Dubs. It's great to meet you in Newton back there. I wish we were able to keep up with that storm. You know, that Newton storm ended up dropping an EF3 up the road a ways. It's just the road, the navigation, the road network didn't quite favor us effectively keeping up with that storm. Signal them. Hear the car. That's got to be like dried out belts or something. It's not good. Weakened belts for sure. I had to guess. I did put some Flex Seal up on that joint because I broke the seal on the door when I locked my keys in the car. I had to call a locksmith to get into the car, but I was able to seal up that joint of the door with Flex Tape. I think that's what it is. It's got to be a belt, right? Like just some micro slips that are happening that creates that high-pitched noise. Hear it? I've got the heat off. Yeah, it's not related to the heat. How much of a problem is the timing belt? Could my car just suddenly stop running? No, it's not from the mirror. It's definitely something from the engine. The noise is getting worse too. It does increase with RPMs, yes. What'd you do? Just keep driving with it? I just got an oil change recently. I got 180,000 miles on it. Why not do another oil change for a couple more thousand miles? No time to go to a mechanic. Yeah, intake, I think. Is that an exhaust header or exhaust issue? Yeah, I only drove 65,000 miles last year. Normally I'm up near 100,000, so the last couple of years I haven't been driving as many miles as I used to. It is not running hot. No, the temperature is normal. It's not running hot. It's a Subaru. No, it was making that noise beforehand, before the oil change. It's just kind of been doing it since the winter. Just a gradual increase in the squeaking. Is the serpentine belt going to lead to engine failure? Next exit. I heard that someone said if I put some deodorant on the serpentine belt that would fix everything, so. How do you know when a timing belt's about to go out? Storms are erupting to the west of Omaha right now, too, it looks like. Elevated supercells right along the surface low ejection. Definitely a large hailer south of Clarkson, west of Maple Creek. Big blob of hail right there, west of Maple Creek. Another updraft on near Schuyler. Bucky's, it leads. Come on down to Bucky's. It leads. Night. 74, relatively dry. Looks moist, but it's dry still out here. I don't usually send it until I have visual of the tornado, then instinct takes over. And I can't help it but get very close to the tornado. Sometimes even too close. I probably do need to start being a little more careful at night, you know, because that tornado was moving fast, and those cars that were going slow right in front of us, it easily could have slammed into us when we were going relatively slow behind those folks. I had to go around them really quick, but the tornado was even with us. It had caught us, but thankfully it was a couple hundred yards to the south of State Highway 21. But if it was actually coming up the highway like I thought it was, it likely would have caught us. And the ideal scenario for deployment would have been to continue racing northeast and then drop all those sensors a little bit closer to Crockett, and then we would have had a direct hit. So we did have a sensor in the vehicle at the time. We did measure about a 6 millibar pressure drop on the closest approach to the tornado. But really we need to have that network of gravity wave sensors laid out ahead of the tornado, probably 5 miles ahead of it. And then if we can sustain a direct hit, then they'll really be dominating. Remember when we deployed the subsonic sensor on that tornado near Benjamin? We could actually see the source of the infrasound from the tornado, the roar, low frequency roar of the tornado. So I wish that I brought the subsonic sensor for that tornado the other night to the west of Crockett, and we likely would have sampled a lot of those winds as well. Boy, those hailers to the northwest of Maple Creek, classic hail blobs, probably dumping golf balls down to copious amounts of small hail to the northwest of Maple Creek. Look at those hailers to the west of Omaha, just dominating out there. If you live in Clarkson area, you're probably getting dominated by small hail, copious amounts of small hail. Meanwhile, severe thunderstorm warning has been issued for Topeka, but definitely looks like a line of storms. Linear mode coming into Topeka. Looks like damaging straight line winds are going to be possible with this one. A little bit of a bow out happening too. That's the I-70 corridor. 35 is getting blasted miles an hour. And eventually this as well with a damaging straight line wind threat. Not even close to Kansas. Are you kidding me? Jeez. Another little elevated structure just southeast of Florence, Kansas. I have the 40, the 35, the 30, the 25, the 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown, red. Gibbons. I'm probably going to be covering the entire vehicle with Flex Max. So the hood is starting to rust a little bit. Those big hail dents. Paint is starting to peel away a little bit, exposing some of the metal underneath. And I'm starting to notice a little bit of rust buildup. On the hood. So I'm thinking about covering the whole hood with Flex Max. Big fan of Boomer Sooner country. Oklahoma does have some storms developing. Let's take a look at that. We're tracking that wildfire. There's not a single severe thunderstorm warning, though, in Oklahoma right now. Just some bubblers. It looks like that wildfire south of Arnett is still going. And it's sagging off to the south, if anything. Earlier, there were mandatory evacuations. Mike's Best Pictures, never stop chasing. Thank you. Thank you for joining us here. And it looks like the plume might be weakening a little bit south of Arnett. There's still some flames down there trying to ramp back up due south of Arnett. But it looks like that plume, at least according to radar, has tried to dissipate a little bit to the south of Arnett. That was a raging wildfire there. I'm going to check my good friend Jeremy Carter's live stream. He chases for Channel 9 out there in Oklahoma. I'm sure he was on it. He's kind of become the wildfire guru out in that area. Storms, though, are initiating all the way down into northwest Texas. There's even a storm trying to go near Vernon off that strong dry line. Vernon's steakhouse, that amazing steakhouse there in Vernon that we all love so much. Dry line marching east, approaching Quanah now. The dry line is through Mangum. Dry line approaching Elk City, moving through Elk City. I do think that overall it's possible that tonight's tornado threat could be a bit suppressed. Seems like kind of a uglier mode out there. Thank you, Eric. Never stop chasing. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for joining me for this extreme weather chat. Thank you, Larry K. Never stop chasing. I'm going to continue to be pushing west this evening. Excited for the 0Z models to come out here in a couple of hours. Just cruising through Alabama. And then probably we'll end up down into central Louisiana, maybe down in the bayou. From Jackson, I could drop down I-55 and then west on I-10, and then maybe intercept those near Baton Rouge and then chase everything northeast. Or do I try to stay out in the Monroe area? Stay in Monroe very often. Big fan of Casey's out there. Good catfish po' boy, Cajun food. But as I'm driving out, we're monitoring the severe weather. No tornado warnings issued today, but convective initiation is happening on the dry line all the way down into northwest Texas. Strong storm near Vernon right now that's sub-severe, but is just starting to mature. We were tracking that wildfire to the southeast of Arnett. Mandatory evacuations in Durham, Oklahoma. Crossing I-65 right now. Taking the loop around the south side of the metro. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Storm Prediction Center does go high risk tomorrow, even if it's just for the wind threat. And it'll be coming in at around 1 o'clock. Severe thunderstorm warnings for Topeka and I-35, but it's a wind event, definitely a straight line wind event. Not seeing any potential for tornadoes up there. Dew points definitely mixed out. And rapid moisture infection today. I was always battling against the mixing from peak heating. So thank you everybody for joining me for this live chat. Be sure to sign up for notifications and subscribe. I'm going to start my live stream tomorrow morning relatively early. And I'm going to be going through the whole entire chase mode. Never stop chasing.